Puppetry, green screen trickery, and a fake version of an unmistakably recognizable metropolis? This is how I Am Legend was transformed by its special effects. In an early sequence, Dr. Robert Neville takes a joyride in his Mustang through the wreckage of the city. The former metropolis of New York City is now wide open country. This section culminates with a stunt in which Neville swerves to avoid some deer crossing the road. According to the behind-the-scenes footage, this proved to be one of the most complicated scenes to produce. First, it required clearing large sections of Manhattan. Then, in order to capture Will Smith in the shots without relying on a blue screen, the filmmakers used an at-the-time technologically advanced setup that involved a stunt driver controlling the car from an attached pod with the actor in the front seat. This then required heavy CGI work to remove the equipment planted on the car, which is to say nothing of all the other VFX needed to transfer this sequence into the world of I Am Legend.
It's definitely advancing technologically.
Entering Times Square in I Am Legend marks the moment when viewers really feel the scope of the damage that the virus has caused. The busiest part of the city that never sleeps looks utterly abandoned, which sets the stage for everything else to come. When Neville creeps through the grass while approaching the overgrown post-urban space, we get to see the time capsule created by the apocalypse. Despite shooting in New York City for a good portion of the production, the I Am Legend team couldn't actually clear the real Times Square for these sequences. So they were shot instead on a soundstage, which allowed for a controlled environment. Practical effects and props brought the tall grass and some cars to life, while the team relied on digital effects for everything else. One of the most noticeable bits of visual rendering in I Am Legend is undoubtedly the animals. Even though humanity is all but wiped out, a number of other creatures continue to live in nature. The deer in particular look like CGI creations, and that's because they are. In one early sequence, we see them running together in a large herd, which tends to really accentuate the sense of the uncanny valley. The one exception to this rule is Neville's dog Sam, played by canine actors Abby and Kona. The rest of the movie's infected dogs were added in digitally, although for scenes where Will Smith interacted with them, a puppet helped elicit a physical reaction from the actor.
You know I don't like surprises.
In the opening shots of I Am Legend, director Francis Lawrence treats us to a bird's-eye view of Manhattan. This represents just one of the many establishing moments that help illustrate the decay and breakdown of the world since the viral outbreak 3 years earlier. VFX artists handled pretty much all of that hard work. In total, Sony Pictures Imageworks delivered more than 800 visual effects shots. In order to make Manhattan appear convincingly lifeless and worn, the VFX team added broken windows, collapsed rubble, and overgrown plants to exterior shots of the city. All signs of life in the original shots needed to be taken out, including cars, pedestrians, birds, and pretty much whatever else you can think of. So much intricate movie magic was required to clean or dirty up the frames. Vegetation was added as it spread out over the street. These effects combine with the darker and moodier color palette to complete an image that feels completely different from what the camera initially captured. Here's another remarkable CGI shot from the establishing sequences. It presents footage of a dilapidated NYC in the form of a full highway and skyline of the entire city. To get the end product right, dozens of moving cars and vehicles were removed from the original shot. What began as a regular look at a busy city skyline was completely transformed into an abandoned highway. Even better, a pile of junk cars eventually took up the space that was once used to travel, and the whole street was flooded to make it completely unusable. This image serves as a reminder of the chaos of the night of the outbreak and how humanity destroyed itself. The scene featuring Neville at the financial district's South Street Seaport, which he visits daily to check if anyone heeded his call for other survivors, boasts some of I Am Legend's most complex background VFX. For the shots filmed on location, the city looming in the background provides an important aspect of the framing and photography. That presented some challenges to the VFX artists, as it needed to now reflect the destruction in the rest of the city in fine detail across the backgrounds of each of these shots. To make this work, a matte painter created 2.5D elements that added fire damage and broken windows to assorted buildings. This matte painting layer was then superimposed on top of the backgrounds from the shot itself. It also required the VFX artist to drop in elements that the filmmakers wanted in the background that didn't actually appear in the original shots, including a bridge and highways.
Please. You are not alone.
When Neville happens upon an abandoned mobile station to siphon some gas from the pumps, we get another glance at an everyday location that normally wouldn't be remarkable in any way. What's interesting about this moment before and after the effects has little to do with the overgrown, rusted gas station itself. CGI was deployed most noticeably here to drape a giant plastic tarp over what appears to be a previously quarantined building, back when there were people to quarantine. On the tarp is a symbol implying that this building was once used as a containment site. This is a visual effects touch that makes the environment more visually interesting in a way that elevates the storytelling and world building. This background image serves to drive home the notion that the city and its denizens went through hell not too long ago. An early flashback sequence reveals Dr. Neville's location on the night of the outbreak, as well as what he lost that day. Filming and editing this sequence in a way that ultimately made sense in the finished product proved to be a huge hurdle. The issue was that the pier that Neville and his family evacuated from didn't actually exist in the New York City of 2007, so production brought in a barge and attached it to the shoreline, which was quite a massive undertaking. The evacuation's establishing shot had to be recorded in 2 pieces and stitched together, which required rendering a 3-dimensional FDR drive and Brooklyn Bridge with special effects. In the scene, military forces patrolled the road. To bring them in, actors had to first be shot on a green screen, and then later their images were added to the final composite image. This sequence ended up being almost entirely a digital collage of filmmaking magic, not in spite of how realistic it looks, but because of that.
To pull that one off required the cooperation of city, state, and federal agencies, I think, to a degree unprecedented in New York.
The evacuation ultimately goes very wrong for Neville and his family. After being separated from his wife Zoe and daughter Marley, he's forced to stay on the island to help the military. In the ensuing chaos of the bridges being bombed to stop the spread of the virus, Zoe and Marley are killed in a helicopter accident. In one particular shot, the bridge collapse can be seen in the form of a flaming wreck. In order to make this happen, the VFX artist first had to remove the bridge entirely from the initial shots that were recorded. Then, the entire Brooklyn Bridge had to be added in with VFX, only for it to then be destroyed. Since they were shooting on location and couldn't actually destroy a bridge, this was the best workaround. Thus, the bridges were first removed from the shots and then rendered entirely in 3D, so that the sequence could benefit from the most explosive and heartbreaking results possible. Another memorable sequence features dozens of Darkseekers attacking Neville as he sits in a minivan. A behind-the-scenes feature on the special edition Blu-ray refers to this scene as the Nighttime Demolition Derby. It looks like it was shot in New York, but it was actually rendered entirely on a green screen. Most of the elements outside the car were added digitally, making this one of I Am Legend's most special effects heavy scenes. In the scene, Neville is angrily driving as he tries to get the Darkseekers off his ride. The entire environment needed to be computer generated. This consisted of many disparate technical aspects, including a 360-degree matte painting for the background, CG water, and CG bridges and highways. Naturally, all the infected creatures attacking Neville were also CG. The only practical props in the scene are the car itself and the telephone pole that comes crashing down. Some moviegoers might remember I Am Legend for its gripping action, while others look back fondly at its ahead-of-its-time CGI. And still, others recall it only for the scene where the dog dies. Here's how the tragedy goes down. Neville and his German Shepherd companion Sam cross a bridge and are attacked by a pack of infected canines. Neville walks away without a scratch, but Sam isn't so lucky. There's one moment when one of the dogs tackles Neville and starts chomping at his face. In order to make the stakes feel as dangerous as possible, a puppet of the dog's face and mouth was used. A behind-the-scenes clip reveals an actor in a green screen suit holding a dog head puppet. Special effects were added afterward to remove the actor and complete the dog's torso, thereby giving it a completely different look from the vicious puppet. This explanation could potentially turn a pretty intense scene into just a silly moment of 2 grown men playing with puppets. But that dog head is pretty darn scary.
Samantha, just gotta get you home.
While I Am Legend was pretty successful at the time it came out, some aspects of the movie admittedly haven't aged that well. Years after the release, the full CGI Darkseekers look awkward and silly in certain lighting, but going the VFX route wasn't always the plan. Initially, Director Francis Lawrence wanted to use actors wearing prosthetics and makeup to play each of the Darkseekers on screen. Parkour specialists were even hired and trained before Lawrence realized that the visual direction didn't feel convincing or menacing enough. He then worked out a combination of animation and motion capture. Motion capture was still used as the base for the movements of the creatures, but supplemental animations made the performances feel more erratic and creature-like. The film's VFX unit also needed to devise the translucent appearance of the Darkseeker's infected skin. To do this, each Darkseeker model contained 3 meshes, or layers: the thin translucent layer of skin, the musculature beneath, and the skeleton for lighting purposes. Making sure that these creatures looked convincing in all lights was key to pulling off this successfully. But with hindsight, it might not have hit the mark completely. I Am Legend's VFX artists created 2 models that all the other Darkseekers were copied from. The alpha male and female were based on facial and motion capture performances. Using these 2 scans, 6 body types were digitally built for the infected human characters. Secondary characteristics were then generated in order to create the 43 distinct digital models that reappear throughout the film. This meant that Will Smith didn't always act opposite physical bodies while shooting scenes with the infected creatures, but there was at least one in which he acted alongside the motion capture performer. When Neville tests the would-be cure on an infected woman, the audience watches along with them, hoping against hope that it will work. That is, until she starts to thrash about. In a behind-the-scenes feature, it's revealed that an actual woman in a motion capture suit performed this stunt on set. However, other scenes like the demolition derby would have been impossible to film safely even using motion capture, hence why CGI was so useful for capturing the scale of production.